recorded. So I'm going to go through the introduction again so it's on the recording. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Jennifer Dye, a librarian at the Detroit Public Library. We have a strong program with the League of Women Voters of Detroit for over a year now. We present on issues of concern to Michigan voters about 10 months of the year. You were brought into this program muted. Please put any questions into the chat. Ruth Coolwine will capture these questions and ask them at the end of the presentation. We might be able to allow people to unmute at the end to ask questions if time allows. This presentation will be recorded and will be made available on DPL's and the Detroit League's websites. Rhonda Craig, president of the League of Women Voters Detroit, will be our presenter this evening, and she will start by speaking briefly about the League and the Detroit group.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here today. I'm so happy that you tuned in to listen to this important message, our educational program that we have on our voting rights in Michigan. Let me tell you a little bit about the League of Women Voters. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization with local, state, and national components. For over a century, 100 years, we have worked to ensure that our citizens are informed about their public officials, policy, and any other things in the community they need to know. We believe in an informed electorate. We hold campaign forums or candidate forums. We do voter registration drives and town halls. We believe that elected officials should represent everyone and not just a few people. We want everyone to get involved with the democratic process and to understand that process and understand what's going on in their community. So I urge everyone to join the League of Women Voters. You can go to our website, lwbdetroit.org, and we're also on Facebook. Find out about us and join us if you can. We'd love to have you. We have a lot of work to do in the upcoming year. We have a lot of programs. We have a lot of programs for voter registration and for notifying the public. And of course, we have candidate forums. Tonight's presentation is about the update on voters' rights, voters' bills, and initiatives that have been promulgated in our state legislature. And I can start our presentation now. I believe everybody can see the screen. This presentation is, the League of Women Voters is pleased to present this update on the changing status of voting rights, initiatives, and legislation in Michigan. It is an educational program with funds provided from the League of Women Voters Michigan Education Fund. It does not advocate action on the materials provided. The PowerPoint is updated regularly because the voting rights in Michigan are currently in a state of flux. We encourage people to keep checking your trusted sources of information, including LWBMI, that's League of Women Voters Michigan website, and other resources mentioned at the end of this presentation. The purpose of the LWBMI Education Fund is to provide nonpartisan information about candidates and ballot issues to Michigan voters, to provide information about the mechanics of registering and voting, and to encourage citizens to participate in civic life and to provide them nonpartisan information about important non-ballot issues. In 2018, the League of Women Voters, ACLU, NAACP, and other organizations supported the Promote the Vote ballot proposal that amended the Michigan Constitution. Voting rights are popular, very popular in Michigan. Promote the Vote, which was Proposal 3, passed overwhelmingly 67% to 33% of the voters, and in 80 of the 83 counties. In addition, the legislature passed and the governor signed Public Acts 350-354 of 2018 to provide for online voter registration. Yay! As a result, we have a new voting rights that we want. We have new voting rights that we want to highlight. Vote under voter registration, you have the eligibility to vote is unchanged. You are eligible to vote if you are on election day a Michigan resident and a resident of your city township for at least 30 days, a United States citizen, at least 18 years of age, and not currently serving a sentence in jail or prison. There's new same-day voter registration, however. Excuse me. In fact, you may register anytime up to 8 p.m. on election day. Now, if you register early, you have more choices. You can register in person at your local city township with proof of residency, or in person at the Secretary of State, or in person at the state agency providing public assistance and services to people with disabilities. Absentee ballots must be submitted to the court You may register online at the michigan.gov with Michigan driver's license, state ID, and offer the last 4 digits of your social security number. You can do this up until 2 weeks before election day. You may use a mail-in application. Should be mailed at least 2 weeks before the election day. If you register in person, bring required proof of residency and any of the following which show your name and address: your Michigan driver's license or state ID, current utility bill, bank statement, paycheck or government check, other government document, or electronic versions. Electronic versions are okay. All registered voters have a right to vote before election day by absentee ballot. Everyone, no reason must be given. You can request an absentee ballot through an application. There's a signature required. Absentee ballots are available 40 days prior to election. You must return absentee ballots by 8 p.m. on election day. Military and overseas voters can also vote absentee. You can vote in person at your clerk's office or satellite office before election day, up to 40 days prior to the election day, and you check with your clerk for specifics. You could even go to your clerk's office to register to vote, request an absentee ballot, vote it, and return it all in one day. If you're not sure you're registered, you can go to mi.gov/vote. That's mi.gov/vote. Voting rights on election day. You can register to vote at a clerk's office on election day if you're not registered or have moved. If you are registered, you must vote in your assigned precinct. Polls are open from 7 to 8 p.m. ID is required, or you must sign an affidavit. Absentee ballots must be submitted to the clerk or put in the drop box by 8 p.m. Michiganders supported the 2018 Voting Rights Proposal 3 to expand voting rights. And possibly, as a result of Promote the Vote, more people voted in 2020 despite COVID than in 2016. 5.5 million people voted. That's more than 652,000 than in 2016. This represents 70% of those 18 or over, compared to 63% in 2016. In 2020, 3.3 million, that's 2/3 of the voters, voted absentee. In 2020, we had a close election for president in Michigan, and there has been much controversy. As you can see, we had a closer election in 2016 in Michigan, but we had no drawn out campaign saying there was voter fraud. Post-election audits of 2020 general election were the most extensive in Michigan's history. There were 3 types of audits conducted. First is the precinct procedural audit. These audits were conducted primarily by county clerks and involved the review of more than 200 in-person voting precincts across the state. They were designed to ensure that election officials and poll workers followed the correct procedures in conducting elections in these precincts, which required pre-election requirements were fulfilled and that required records were maintained. The audits also included a full hand count of paper ballots cast in the U.S. Senate race in each of these precincts. The second kind of audit that was conducted was an absentee voter counting board audit. Now this was new for 2020. Bureau of Elections worked with city and county election officials to review records and procedures in absent voter counting boards in 4 large jurisdictions. The audits focused on determining how many absent voter counting boards were out of balance and could have been reconciled with additional review and identifying the reasons why counting boards were out of balance. The last audit was a risk limiting audit. The state conducted a risk limiting audit exercise of the president election statewide. Approximately 18,000 ballots were randomly selected from more than 1,300 local jurisdictions statewide. And the results of the randomly selected ballots were compared to the statewide tabulated total. The Bureau of Elections also conducted a full hand count audit of all presidential election ballots in Atrium County. Running of elections, is a local responsibility and held by Michigan's 1,520 township clerks, along with their staff, volunteers, and poll workers and election inspectors that they have hired to work in polling places and perform other election functions. Auditing of elections, which includes review of the city and township clerks who ran the elections, is performed by county and state officials. There were also numerous court cases that found no evidence of voter fraud, and the Senate Oversight Committee chairman, chaired by Senator Ed McBroom, a Republican, released a report that said that the election was safe and secure. The reaction to the 2020 election has resulted in over 100 bills introduced to the Michigan House of Representatives and over 100 bills introduced in the state Michigan Senate, including the 39 bill package introduced in March of 2021. This is how an overview of how a bill becomes law. First, it goes to the State Senate Election Committee to the Senate for a vote. Once passed in the Senate, bills go to the House Election and Ethics Committee. Then they go from the House Elections and Ethics Committee to the House for a vote. Once passed in the House, they go back to the Senate, and the Senate sends it to the governor. The governor has the option to sign or veto the bill. If she vetoes, legislators can try to override the veto by 2/3 vote. We have 38 senators, 22 are Republican, 16 Democrat. It would take 24 to override. In the House of Representatives, we have 110 House of Representatives, 55 Republicans and 51 Democrats with 4 vacancies. So it would take 71 House representatives to override a bill. This is the Senate Elections Committee. The Senate Elections Committee is chaired by Ruth Johnson of Oakland County, Ed McBroom of Upper Peninsula, Curtis Vanderwall of Benzie and Crawford counties, and all of those are Republicans, and one Democrat, Paul Wojno, he's with Macomb County. The hearings started on April 21st of 2021 and are continuing. Testimony was taken on all 39 bills. Most bills are still in the committee, and you can see the numbers of the bills on the screen. 12 bills have moved. The 12 blue bills include drop box regulations, mailing of absentee ballot applications, use of volunteers, increased identification in order to register or obtain an absentee ballot, and other issues. Now you can keep up to date on this information by going to LWBMI.org. That stands for League of Women Voters, Michigan.org. And they keep up to date information about what's going on. Bills passed in the House and Senate and were vetoed by Governor Whitmer on October 3rd, 15th, and 29th of last year. The governor said the bills perpetuate the big lie and that every citizen has a guaranteed right to vote. The 8 bills vetoed have dealt with expansion of polling places, to block third parties from accessing the qualified voter file, ban voting machines from being connected to the internet, require county clerks to remove deceased voters from qualified voter files, establish a timeline for completing reviews of initiative petitions, establishing new identifying information in order to register to vote or to obtain an absentee ballot, prohibit the Secretary of State and clerks from mailing absentee ballot applications unless requested, and prevent private nonprofit funding for elections. You can get a complete list of a copy of bills, the current status, and League of Women Voters Michigan positions on the bill, again at LWBMI.org. You can look up minutes and testimony of these bills by going to senate.michigan.gov and selecting the Senate Elections Committee, or house.michigan.gov and select the House Ethics and the House Elections and Ethics Committee. You can also look up these bills and see an analysis of them at the michiganlegislature.gov. As many of the things in some of these bills, the clerks already do and are already required, and some of them are more restrictive of voting rights. What can you do? You can stay informed. Information is changed regularly at LWBMI, and help show people that the 2020 election was safe, secure, and fair. You can check out Secretary of State's website, fact checks at michigan.gov. Now, the Secretary of State, Joycelyn Benson, has an agenda she would like to have passed. However, it has not been taken up in the Michigan House or the Senate. It deals with equitable access, strong infrastructure, and secure elections. Recently, some House bills have introduced that make some of these changes. The new initiative petition, Secure MI Vote, the petitions are being circulated now, seems to be a response to the 2020 election and the belief that there was voter fraud. On September 8th, a group called Secure MI Vote, Secure Michigan Vote, or Secure MI Vote, submitted an initiative petition to the State Board of Canvassers. The board approved the form and the summary, and petitions are being circulated. They must gather 340,047 valid signatures in order to have the State Board of Canvassers approve it. The number is equivalent to 8% of the voters who voted for the governor in 2018. This process is used to enact a law that the governor cannot veto. Once the signatures are verified, the legislature can vote to enact the law or put it on the next general election. The Secure MI Vote Ballot Question Committee had approximately $85,000 when it filed its report on November 2nd, 2021. 80,000 of that, 80,000 of the 85,000 came from one donor, Ron Weisler, who is chair of the Michigan Republican Party. To see more details, go to Michigan Campaign Finance Statement Detail. That's NICTUSA.com. This is a timeline of how the initiative process works. You read the boxes just going across. Citizens of Michigan may initiate legislation as either an indirectly initiated state statute. For statutes, if the petition receives enough ballot signatures, then the state legislature has 40 days to adopt or reject the proposal. If the legislature rejects the law, then the measure is placed on the next general election ballot. If it has an appropriation, there can be no referendum on the law. If the legislature approves it, it becomes law 90 days later. The initiated law can be amended by the legislature after adopting through the regular legislative process and must be signed by the governor. Secure MI Vote has an appropriation, so there can be no referendum. We don't know when the initiative would go into effect once the signatures are submitted and verified. The legislature can approve the law, and it takes 90 days after that. It will not be, if they have, so far, they haven't completed the process. So we're hopeful that it will not take effect in the 2021 elections, or it cannot take effect in the 2020. The proposal mandates that people disclose partial Social Security numbers when registering to vote. That's not required now. It restricts the options for registered voters to verify their identity. Acceptable forms of photo identity would include a driver's license, state ID, passport, military ID, tribal ID, or student ID issued by a university, junior college, or community college. If not, the voter is given an ID-only provisional ballots. It eliminates the use of an affidavit. It requires voters applying for an absentee ballot to include their driver's license or state ID or the last 4 digits of their Social Security number on their application. It's not required now. It prohibits election officials from sending or providing absentee applications unless asked. Clerks can, right now, clerks can do that, and many are. This initiative also bans charitable contributions, including volunteer time to help and donate space to help administer elections. That's right now, currently, charitable elections and contributions and volunteers are allowed. States that drop boxes close at 8 p.m. on election day. There's no change there. It mandates offices be open 9 to 5 for the 5 weekdays leading up to the election, or accept absentee to accept absentee ballots or that drop boxes be made available for return ballots. It establishes voter access fund and advocates $3 million for 1 year to provide free photo identification for those who declare a need, and allows the legislature to adopt the legislation without a vote because of the people, without a vote of the people, blocks of people's referendum vote after adoption because of the $3 million appropriations. Currently, the rule says that if there's an appropriation in a petition and a bill, that there cannot be a referendum. That means the people cannot change the law. Other information: currently Michigan voters can sign an affidavit affirming their identity, and if their names are on the qualified voter file, they can vote. 11,400 or 2.2% of voters use this in 2020 elections. It adds that if no photo ID, it adds that if you don't have a photo ID, you can complete a provisional ballot and have to go to the clerk's office within 6 days to verify your identity for your vote to count. 7 states have strict voter ID laws, like this proposal: Arkansas, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Wisconsin. Note that there are penalties for false information now. Perjury is punishable by a fine of up to $1,000 or jail up to 5 years or both. 465 cities, townships, and counties are receiving funding from nonprofits in 2020. So this would definitely make a change in how our townships and cities are running their election. They can't receive any extra funding. Voters cannot vote to repeal this law because it contains an unnecessary allocation for 1 year of $3 million to provide voter IDs for those in hardship. The current cost is $10, and there are provisions for hardships now. So this is something that may not be necessary. An official copy of birth certificate can cost anywhere from $15 to $30, depending on the state. The fees for a new passport or to renew a passport are $135 and $110 respectively. The price of a replacement naturalization certificate or certificate of citizenship is $345. 19 states have passed 33 bills that change voting. And this is a map of the states that have. There are bills moving at the federal level that may impact the laws passed in those 19 states and secure MI vote if it is adopted. The US House has passed H.R. 1, the For the People Act, and H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We are waiting to see if the Senate will pass either bill or the new Freedom to Vote bill. This resource page highlights where you can get more information. There's a publication called Know Your Rights, Know Your Voting Rights, and that's available. Also, you can fact check on the Secretary of State's website. I'll do a short, very, very short presentation on what is mis and disinformation. Misinformation is the sharing of false information without the intent of harm. Misinformation can spread when journalists misinterpret something or fail to verify a source's claim. It can also happen on social media. Well-intentioned individuals can easily share or like content that is outdated or misleading and can do so unintentionally. Disinformation, however, is creating and sharing false information with the intent to harm. Bad actors who spread disinformation online have different motivations. It could be voter suppression in communities of color, spreading mistrust in democracy, but the common goal is to have their bad information reach the mainstream media. How do you spot disinformation online? Consider the source. Does the URL look strange? Check the About page on the website. Check the date. Is the story old news? Sharing out-of-date information may not match current events. Cross-check your information. Are reputable news sources reporting the same story? Read past the headlines. What's the whole story? Sometimes a headline doesn't match the content. Question emotionally charged content. Disinformation tends to sow division by getting us angry or sad through images or memes. How do we combat mis and disinformation? First, never quote bad information. This only helps to spread the bad messages wider. And studies show that repeating bad information, even to debunk it, makes people more likely to remember the bad information and not your good information. Refer to the bad information without repeating it. Say something like, some bad actors are making false claims about the legitimacy of the 2020 elections. Rather than saying Representative Jones says that thousands of ballots were stuffed at the election office. This isn't true. So don't say that. Don't repeat the bad information. Focus on providing the correct information, and if possible, include trustworthy sources for where to learn more. You can also give what they call inoculation or inoculating information. This is, think of good information like a vaccine. You want to proactively inoculate against anticipated problematic content before it spreads. It cannot be said enough. Do not repeat or quote bad information. The method of showing myth versus fact only spreads the myth further. Find ways to call out the bad information without repeating it. Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. That concludes our presentation. I hope it has been informative for you, and please go visit the websites, and especially League of Women Voters MI. And you can also check out our website at lwvdetroit.org. The Secretary of State's office, the Michigan.gov website has a lot of information on these proposed bills. Also, if you have any questions about the new voter rights laws that we've enacted and ones that people are proposing to enact, go to the Michigan.gov website. So now we can open it up to questions.
Yeah, we have one right now, which is, how would a voter that needs an ID go about using the funds to have the cost of getting the ID paid for? Will there be publicity to advise voters that they can get free IDs?
Now, in the past election, they did allow free people to get free IDs. There was a lot of, I believe, a lot of advertisement about that from the Secretary of State's office. You can go to their website and they would talk about it. But I would suggest that if you or somebody is in need of an ID and cannot pay for it, go to the website or go to the Secretary of State's office. I think right now they require you to have an appointment. But go there and they will provide information on how to get one free.
And Another question, would you remind us how many voters have to sign this initiative to get it enacted? I might add on to that, how much time do they have to get those signatures?
Well, I'm not sure about what timeline. They can't, it will not affect the 2022 election because they did not get everything in by December 31st of last year. In order to get the petition, I'm looking through my notes. I believe it was
Rhonda, you said that it was 8% of the people.
yes,
Governor in
yes.
2018. I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
Yes.
Thank
you, Charles.
Charles is saying
Charles, what did it say?
340,047 people have to sign. And
Okay,
he's
yes.
also found that the calendar.
3,040 and 47 ballot signatures, which is 8% of the voters who voted for governor in 2018.
Yeah, and so that number changes pretty frequently, I guess, or every time we vote for a governor.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know if there's a timeline for how long they have to get those signatures. But they haven't completed the process of haven't submitted their signatures by last year, and they had to do that by the end of last year in order for it to affect or to be on the 2022 ballot. So it's not going to be in this election, this year's election.
Yeah, we have another question. Is it possible to get a copy of the PowerPoint sent to attendees?
I asked that question of the State League of Women Voters. They indicated no, because this particular PowerPoint was funded by the Educational Fund, and the Educational Fund cannot be used to advocate anything. Okay, to advocate a policy, petition, a point of view. It's just for educational purposes, and to that end, they will not submit it to anyone else outside of LWB because people can change it and make it something that's more partisan or makes it advocate a certain view. And that would be outside of our funding limits or restrictions.
Okay, but we will have a copy of the recording available. Jennifer, it's going to be, do you mind reminding us where we'll be able to find that recording?
This is Jennifer again. We will have it on the Detroit Public Library website. I thought I'd saved the YouTube page, but if you go excuse me, to detroitpubliclibrary.org, there is a page for the YouTube, for our YouTube channel. You can get directly in touch with me at this email address and send you a copy of the presentation. It will be available on the League of Women Voters Detroit website and on the Detroit Public Library YouTube channel. But I'm happy to send an individual copy.
All right. And then we have another question. Are the people gathering petition signatures required to tell you who is funding the petition drive if they're asked or not asked even? Do they have to?
I don't know what the canvassers are required to give. I think the canvassers at this point are only saying, read the petition, read the petition, read the petition. But you can always get information on the Secretary of State's website and Michigan.gov. The information provided regarding the backers of Secure Vote MI, that information is a part of their campaign finance rules, and they have to be forthcoming in those when they submit their applications, to indicate who they are and where their money is coming from. It says go to Michigan Campaign Finance Statement Detail NICTUSA.com. That's NICTUSA.com for more details. So you have to go there to find out the information. I have talked to many canvassers of petitions I've encountered on the street. They don't know, they're usually hired by someone. They don't know anything about the petition, then a head of cabbage.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're just saying, sign this petition, sign this petition, sign this petition.
Yeah. And as a reminder, the League of Women Voters Michigan website is updated to reflect all the most current changes as things change it, or is it like just on a regular schedule of update?
They do it as things change. I checked a couple of days ago, and this information remains the same that I've given out tonight. But they usually notify us, all the presidents. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, I am the president of the Detroit League of Women Voters. I probably neglected to mention that earlier, but they'll send the presidents more information. Something comes up, and I have not received anything since last year regarding update of this information.
Okay, I have another question that's my own. Is there a penalty for bringing, like if they show that there hasn't been fraud, is there any penalty for bringing, or like, what am I trying to say? Like or preventing unneeded audits and recounts of elections? Is there something that would keep like unwarranted review? Because I know that costs.
Yeah, that's true. There is nothing so far. If they call for interviews, usually a lot of these questions are settled in the court. Somebody will sue somebody to say, if say for election, an elected official says, well, no, I don't think there's another audit necessary, I'm not going to do it. So then that person might go to the court to sue the county or the city to ask for an audit, and then that would be handled by a judge.
Okay. Cool. And that's our last question, unless there's someone who wants to ask a question for themselves.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Rhonda. No more questions? Our next regular program will be February 8th at 6 o'clock. And that evening, we will welcome Detroit League member Charles Thomas Jr., who will talk about his initiative to encourage voter turnout in this election year. He will also introduce two of his aunts who marched as high school students for voting rights in the 1960s. They will talk about their experiences in the Selma to Montgomery marches. That is called 3 Marches, 2 Sisters, 1 Bridge.
I have one thing to add. And did I interrupt you, Jennifer?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that we have our league membership meeting on Saturday on Zoom, and we're having Daniel Baxter, who is going to speak to whoever attends, our members, and it's open to the community. And he has been the director of elections in past. I don't know if he retired and then came back. He's the executive consultant or something like that now to the Elections Bureau or the Elections Group through the Detroit City elections. And so if you're interested, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Just email us. I put the information about our league and how you can get a hold of us by phone or by our email, and we'll give you the link to that. But you might be interested in that to get a better sense of how the election bureau, it's not a bureau, I'm sorry, the election department is run and what changes there may be in the elections coming up in Detroit. So you're welcome to join us if you're interested.
Thank you, Cheryl. This is Jennifer again, and I want to promote a couple of other programs the library is doing. Tomorrow, we have a program about home solar power. I don't know that much about it. It's being presented by an outside group, but I put the Eventbrite link there. And we also have a series of astronomy programs, and this month's is called Doomed, Insignificant, and Ignorant: The Lessons of Modern Cosmology. And I can't pull up the Eventbrite link here, but here it is. So if there is interest, you are certainly welcome to join us. But thank you everyone for coming. Thank you very much, Rhonda. Thank you, Cheryl and Ruth, who help on the program committee. And if you have any other questions, feel free to get in touch with one of us. My email address again is jdye@DetroitPublicLibrary. And feel free to ask any questions. I will try to address things. I noticed there were a couple of questions came in on my email and I was busy with this, so I will get to those later. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank
Goodbye.
you.
There we go. Stop video. All right. Thank you. Good night.